folks, I'm LA Little and this is your daily TA wrap. We take a look at these markets and we do it from a neoclassical perspective each time, asking ourselves what happened today and what does it tell us about the coming ones. I do a show 4 times a week, every Monday through Thursday, live here at 9 o'clock Eastern Time at the Technical Analysis Today site. Folks, it was a sideways day and really not much happening. The only thing you really saw in terms of action here, it looks like, was the Russell. Remember, the Russell went up, tested, looked like it should pull back. Well, it did pull back. That was the story today. Everything else pretty much flat. It was a hurry up and go nowhere market. We had silver up, but outside of that, I didn't see much happening today. It is all on the news tomorrow, right? I mean, if we look at the situation in these markets, let's pop back over, get the S&Ps back up. This market's waiting on all the economic data coming out tomorrow. I mean, it's had its push again. I mean, I started talking about performance anxiety, way back in this time frame, and that it was probably going to lead to this kind of a action on the way up, and that we're going to see, right? Because when we broke over this, we'd already had a reset on the short-term time frame here, and or actually it was back here. And so when we broke back over and got bullish at this point, that had a reset of the short-term indicators, which gave us the possibility of this thing moving higher. If you remember back then, or if you want to go back and review the shows, we talked about we needed to get up and keep going, and that's exactly what it did. And once it did, right, that put the pressure on anyone not in to get in, because if they didn't, they were going to get left out, because there was going to be a performance squeezing into the month, and that's what happened. Now we got the big push up, start of July here. Today, just a little doji in there, not even a doji, just a sideways action, really didn't do anything. Now, I was away from the trading desk pretty much all day today and really haven't had time to review these, so let's just do them together. So that one really tells you nothing. The Dow up there testing those highs again. So that top was 16,978 and still isn't over it, hanging right at it. So don't they love to do this, right? Every time you've got, not every time, but most times when you got big news coming out, what do they love to do? They love to go right up to where it's going to break out and just hang there. Just get right up underneath it and just hang. This one's down 2 points, wanting to break out, got no volume. Who cares? Going to hang there, see if they get the news tomorrow, either employment number or the ECB. There's like 8 or 9 reports coming out in the morning, but those are the 2 big ones. What's the ECB going to do? Is Super Mario going to say something else? I'm sure in his press conference there's going to be a lot of talk about tools and what they're doing and how they're going to do it. Nobody expects anything out of the actual announcement. They just had the announcement last month, but I would expect that he's going to try to talk down the euro and build up expectations potentially for more easing of some sort or another. He's probably going to talk about how they're rolling out the programs, how successful they are, blah, blah, blah. And he's probably going to leave the door open for something more and reiterate that. And, now that he moved last week, he has some credibility. Now he's just got to keep pushing. He's got to keep pushing things. So Dow sitting, hanging at the top, still not over it. The NASDAQ composite, a little doji after the push. This thing, remember, had finished off 3 ABCD structures, nested ones. There was one here, that was the biggest one, took us all the way up to that level. And then there was some in between there, right? And there was 3 of them here. And each one of them got finished off as we hit those highs yesterday. The NDX had a little bit farther to go. So today is a doji. A doji can be a turning point. I don't know that I would read it that way. Let's see what the NASDAQ did. 3902. You get over it, back underneath it. Lighter volume. That's a failure. So you get a failure on the NASDAQ at the highs. Now the NASDAQ had finished off one ABCD structure, still has another one in place that can take it about 10 more points. Russell. The Russell had finished off its ABCD structure yesterday, and if you remember on the weekly had did a test of the highs, and it's not going to have the volume. So that's a test failure of the highs on the Russell. What does it do? It pulls back just as it should. Volume lighter. Going to probably try to fill this gap first. It will probably be the first one that comes back to fill the gap up. You get that in there, this little area right here, to fill that gap up, and then that's where we'll find out. You know, coming back into this bar, we'll find out what it really wants to do. And my guess is it's going to try to set up another ABCD structure. My guess would be that it comes back into that area and tries to set up another one to take it higher. But we don't know that yet. That's just a guess. Because we still have earnings starting up next week, really starting to roll 2 weeks after that. So we'll get financials first. There will be 2 or 3 reports next week towards the end of the week, a couple financials. Usually JP Morgan, Wells Fargo that Thursday, Friday. The week after that, you start seeing a few others. General Electric and some of the others the next week. And then the week after that, they really start to hit, and they go hot and heavy for about 7 weeks. So that's what's coming. That could be the next catalyst, up or down. And if you look at some of the data that's coming out, the warnings are actually tailing off, and they're not as high. And the expectations of better numbers have actually risen, right? So like Intel coming out 3 weeks ago and saying, hey, my numbers are better than expected. And so you've actually had, from an earnings perspective, it looks like it's going to be a decent earnings quarter comparatively. So that's the backdrop, and that's the way it looks here. Let's go see what the sectors did, if anything. I suspect we didn't have anything happen today because it was just dead. Looks like it was dead as a doornail. Okay, OIT, nothing there. Let's look at the SOX. So these are just inside days. Now the SOX went over and under. 87, yeah, over under, had more volume though. That one can test again. So that was a, when you see that, what is that? That's a failure on price, but not on volume. So that says that it can just go and do it again. XLB was trying to pull back, still hanging there. It's a doji. It had a test failure. Yeah, it had a test failure at the highs. Actually, today it's over it then. That's going to be a breakout. 49.82. Yeah, it's a breakout. Huh. Yeah, I didn't expect that. So anyway, you got a breakout over the highs there on the XLB. So that's actually bullish. XLE, this one's really struggling. This one's going to have a tough time getting back up to this level and certainly getting over. So XLE, I think, has ran as far as it's going to run near term, unless something goes crazy overseas. XLF hanging at the highs. They're all hanging at the highs again. XLI, that one's struggling too. So we got industrials and energy that are struggling. The technology did not get over the highs, so nothing there. XLP, this one's also been struggling. You know, it's coming back up, but I don't think it's going to get too far looking at it. The XLU got hammered today. Yeah, very much. Volume comes out of it. Remember yesterday was a takeaway bar, but it was coming back into this big bar from 18th. It looked like it was going to try to hold. So now it gets hammered all the way down to the low, gets underneath the low, breaks the low. It's doing a retest regen. And we'd already done a retest regen, so it's really just into support. Really should hold here. If this bar doesn't hold 42.74, then you definitely change the whole dynamics here. So, you know, talk about fooling you. You get up, you get a breakout, immediate retest, right, off that. The retest regenerate fails. So now you have a range trade. The range is from here. Actually, I don't know if it's really there, a little bit lower. You could actually draw about 3 of them in here. So, it's going to test the bottom, it looks like. The volume's not quite there, but and it's a big move off the top, but that kind of ruins the idea of a breakout. Now it's a range trade. So XLU not going to contribute. XLV pushing higher. That's a one beautiful breakout and just keeps going. Got another ABCD almost done, and we got the breakout here and a carry through now, and that was multiple swing points. So you still have, let me look at them real quick. You still have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 sectors, 6 sectors, 6 out of 10 still bullish. So it still looks like this thing may pop again tomorrow. Let's look at the ox markets, see what gold, silver, bonds, and the dollar did. Let's start with the dollar because this is where the action is going to be tomorrow. So if we look at the dollar, yeah, it's just a little bounce. Not really telling us anything. Let me see what the FXE looks like, because the FXE was trying to come in. Let's see what it did. It did come in, and it's into the bar. Okay, so we were wondering if it would do this. It did. It's into the bar now. It's not too deep, but if you hang in here again tomorrow, you go into the bottom of the bar. And so you were doing a test of a prior. There was a swing point low over there, back in this area. That was doing the retest regen. Gets over the high into this retest regen area here, and now is back underneath it. So that's back into the lower range. That's a failed break above, right? So that's a retest and an attempt now to regenerate. And boy, if we look at this on a weekly, this is going to be a very big ABCD down if it plays out. So let's see here. So if I do this, we got A, B, C, D from this point up. If this turns out to be the high, I would take it that far down, right? So somewhere around 1350, that would break a swing point low here, and probably that one too on the way. And you got some good support here, so it looks like this would be the target initially. And then eventually try to get back down into this zone, probably would be the next target, if it doesn't. So that price point is 37.59. It's about 4 points. 130.63. Yeah, that takes it right back into this big bar. So that looks to be what we'll set up if Draghi is successful in driving this thing lower tomorrow, and he's going to try. So that's the setup. He wants to break this thing down. He wants this chart to look like this in another 3 or 4 months, right? And we're back down here somewhere. He'd love to get it back down to par, right? Get it back down to 100, I'm sure, right? Because that would raise their exports, would create inflation in the euro zone, and that's what they're really trying to do. And we've seen time and time again what these central banks do is competitive devaluations, and that's essentially what he's doing. Let's see what gold's doing. Gold, test failure of the highs one more time. How many times can we test fail the highs? And I guess silver did the same thing. And yep, and we've done it about 8. We get done it about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, about 6 out of 9 times now on silver, and it keeps making new highs day after day. Bonds, that just tells you how strong those markets are right now. It's just huge momentum. We talked about bonds probably going to fail up here. It took them a little while. They fooled me because I thought they failed here. They went up and held 3 more bars, and now they come off like a rocket back down into this big bar. That's the test that probably is going to happen tomorrow. You got employment numbers and ECB. Gets underneath it, you're breaking 2 swing point lows there, another one here, another one there. This thing's going to really power down if that's what happens. So be on the right side of the trade if you're going to be in the trade. Don't be on the wrong side if it breaks. Let's see what oil did right quick, and then let me pop over to see what and so oil's filled the gap. So oil, we got those two long tails, tested into it, couldn't get over it. If oil's going to come back in, what is that telling you? It tells you Iraq is not falling apart, even though the headlines continue to look horrible. But it's not falling apart. Let me see overseas right quick. And I want to look at Europe in particular, see what they look like going into tomorrow. Let's look at the CACs first, which I think is the weakest. And it did get over back under, had more volume. This one probably is going to try to bounce more. It still looks to me like it's going to try to get back into this area. If we look at the DAX, which to me is the strongest in the group, the DAX gets up higher and it gets over yesterday, a little doji today, so that's kind of a dangerous situation. It's going back into, yeah, I don't know. This one still looks to me like it wants to try to get up there a little bit higher as well. And again, it comes down to what Super Mario does tomorrow. So they don't look bad. They're still set up to bounce more if they want, and the same thing with the FTSE. And let me quickly take a look at the H shares. Moving higher in China and got some volume. That's looking pretty good. And Hong Kong breaks out. So we got the breakout on Hong Kong over the highs. Let's take a look at the weekly now. That's going to take it to the highs. So powering up in Asia. Europe still looks like it can bounce. We've got pretty much strength everywhere else. You know, a few little dead spots. Here's a big doji, another big wide price spread bar. That looks like the top in Taiwan. That's chip country. That tells me maybe the SOX isn't far away as well. So it looks to me like you're going to see a pop tomorrow. It's just set up that way. The euro's set up that way. The dollar. Gold and silver don't not really tell me anything there other than the fact that they continue to be strong. If I look at the bonds selling off, which says hey, equities can still pop. Although bonds may find support right down there, we still got most sectors bullish, and we've got the indexes for the most part still bullish, kind of mixed. So when I look overseas, they look like they can move higher. So to me, that says this market's going to bounce tomorrow into the long holiday weekend. All right, I got a couple of questions. Let me take those real quick. First one is Facebook is emailed in. Folks, if you don't know, you can email questions. You can email them ahead of time. Just send them to support@tatoday.com. You can also text me anytime during the day, 303-912-9110. Either of those, we'll queue them up, and I'll try to answer your questions during the show, and I almost always get to them. Facebook, let's see what it looks like. So Facebook comes down today. All right, so they have continued problems with this nonsense of their, you know, what was it, like a secret scientific study they were doing on people. And I don't think people like that too much, and it's getting a lot of press. So it pulls down today about 2% and pops into this big bar. 65.82, that was a breakout bar and decent volume on it comparatively, you know, of recent, right? Because the last 2 months there has been no volume. So doesn't have the volume. As it hits that, this thing's gonna hold, flip around, go back up. So the question was, is it a buy here? Yeah, looks like it is to me. I still like the way it looks. Next question, the Russell. If you expect Russell to, what do I expect the Russell to do if data is positive tomorrow and the S&P and the Dow rise? Well, the Russell, you know, the Russell was just set to come back because of the run and the test failure. And it did what it was supposed to. And actually, you want it to do what it's supposed to. You don't want it to not do what it's supposed to. I mean, if it does what it's supposed to, then that's fine. If we get positive news, then the Russell will probably go back up and test the highs. It's not gonna go down if everything else is moving up. The thing is the Russell is going to be the one leading down when the down starts. So this is the guy to keep watching. He's been the best signal for like 9 months now, and because of where it lies, if it starts to roll over and fill the gap and all that business, the others are probably going to follow it. It's the lead dog. And lead dog in the sense that it's a canary, right? It's not making the others do anything. It's just that it's kind of the canary in the coal mine. It gives you the early warning signal on the indexes. And so it's an inside day, volume's lighter, there's nothing wrong with that. Matter of fact, you know, if you thought tomorrow was going to be bullish, you would have bought this today. That's the way that sets up. So it's not a bad scenario. Okay, let's see what else we got here. Let me check to see if we get any text messages. If not, I will take a few minutes to look at some stuff I don't usually get time to, and I don't yet, so let's do this. Let's let me pop over and take a look at what else we got here. So let's see what we got in other sectors. I'll tell you what, one thing we never get to do is we never get to go through these sectors very much. One of the things we have, and I'll pull it up here, I'll bring it up here so you can see it, is one of the things that we've done, and one of the members did this along with me, which was really nice, and I appreciate it. It's Federico, who's on here a lot of the times, is he put up, there's shared watch list. You can have shared watch lists. So I put up 3 of these, and then Federico went in and he put the rest of them up, all these components, right? So that we can look at what's inside these, what are driving these components. And so if we're doing that, then we can see, you know, what's coming up. And what we did on these is we put the weighting. So like here in the XLE, you can see Chevron's 12.89, Exxon Mobil's 15. So between those two, you got 27, 28% of the index. As of 5/23, these 10 stocks, we put, I think it was 10, if I remember right, 2, 4, we took the top 10. The top 10 stocks account for 60% of that index. So where these 10 go probably is where that index is going to go. So if we start looking at those, right, and you as a member, you have access to all these. They're all shared, so you can pop in and look at them. So here's APC. Matter of fact, let's start with the heaviest weightings. Let's go to Exxon Mobil. That's 16% of the index. This little puppy is not doing so good. So Exxon Mobil comes down, presses down with volume. It's probably going to get a little bounce, but it doesn't look like it's going to go very far. And if my friend Charles Kirk was doing this show, he would be telling us this looks like a head and shoulders setting up. So somewhere out here, you get some sort of a right shoulder. Now again, the volumes don't look right to me in terms of that classical analysis. But I think what's more important is that you have, you had volume coming up here, you break out, you go up, you come back down, you go up and you test with nothing at the top, you come back down, volume expands a little bit. This certainly can come back into this area and test. This looks to be where it wants to come back to. When it does, you can see the formation probably of an ABCD structure. It will take it lower. So far, it's taken out one low, and that's about it. So nothing horrible here, but it's not going to contribute much. Let's see what CVX looks like. That's 13% of the weighting. CVX much stronger, volume at the top, 35, he's still got volume at the top. So this one is just consolidating. If you want to buy something, this is the sort of stock you want to buy. Big, nice volume run. That's the way it spikes, says it's probably in a range trade. We don't know where the bottom is of the range, but right now we know it's there. So you got swing point highs over here would be a retest regen. So if it were to make it back to this area, it's been more than 6 bars. It's almost an automatic buy. And it looks like it would be an ABCD structure that would finish if it got there, right, into that area. So that's like being handed money on a platter. So anyway, CVX looks pretty good. Doesn't look bad at all. It just looks like it can work its way lower a little bit short term. Next highest weighting is Schlumberger, which is old driller. Looks perfect. I mean, nothing wrong with this guy. And while we're there, let's look at the drillers and see how they look. And they look okay. They look like they're going to pull back in some, but they look okay. So you can see how you can do this, right? And if you can see the top 30-40% of the weighting in 3 or 4 stocks like it is in the XLE, you can get a pretty good feel for what that's going to do. And then if you factor that in, you say, okay, how much of the weighting of the S&P 500 is the XLE? and we probably ought to put that somewhere. Haven't done that yet. Then we could use that to, yeah, matter of fact, I should put that. I actually have, as one of mine, is the major sectors. And this is where I make my notes for members. I could put it right in here so that I know what these weightings are, right? What are these weightings in the S&P? I think I'll do that. And then share that list for you guys. All right, so anyway, looks pretty good. The XLE looks okay. It's not going to crash and burn or anything. Nothing's going to crash and burn right now. Everybody wants this market to go down, and so the market just keeps going up. Let me see if there's any more questions. No more? Okay. I'm getting close enough to the end here. Probably going to pack it in. Tomorrow's going to be a big day. I will have a show tomorrow night, even though it's a short trading day, and we got the holiday the next day. So tune in tomorrow. We'll do it again. We'll analyze what happened, and we'll use that knowledge to think about what's coming next, which is what you always want to be doing in these markets. That's the way it works, folks. If you stay on the right side of a trade on the short-term time frame, you'll be where you need to be on the long term. That's the analysis, and that's the idea. Have yourself a great night. Get your boots strapped on in the morning. There'll be a lot of data coming at you. Until then, I'm LA. This is and was your daily TA wrap. Have a great one. I'll see you next time. Good night, folks.